The most challenging aspect of completing any task is often just getting started. So, how do we overcome this initial hurdle? It's important to understand that before we begin, our brains tend to dwell on the most complex and daunting aspects of the task, making it seem overwhelmingly difficult. This can lead us to procrastinate by focusing on unimportant things. For instance, we might suddenly feel the urge to send a message, then decide we need to listen to music, followed by a desire to make tea, and so on. This pattern arises because we don't feel fully prepared to begin, and we struggle with motivation. Days or even weeks can pass without progress because we never feel ready. However, the reality is that if we keep waiting for the perfect moment, nothing will ever get done. You've probably heard the saying, starting is half the battle. In my opinion, it's more like 80% of the battle. When we start something, the Zeigarnik Effect comes into play in our brains. This effect, named after the psychologist Zeigarnik, explains that we tend to remember incomplete tasks better than completed ones. In simple terms, once we start working on something, we feel a sense of discomfort and unease until we finish it because it occupies our thoughts. This drives us to focus more on the work in order to complete it. A relatable example is how TV shows often end each episode on a cliffhanger, leaving us eagerly anticipating the next one. The unresolved ending lingers in our minds, making us say things like, "It ended at the most exciting part, I wonder what will happen next." Similarly, when we finally complete a task, we realize it wasn't as difficult as we had imagined. This is because once we start and the Zeigarnik Effect kicks in, we become more focused on the work, which boosts our enthusiasm and helps us overcome the initial inertia. Let's discuss effective strategies for getting started. I'll share some well-known methods along with a few we've developed ourselves. While the effectiveness of the latter may vary, they're worth trying out. Method #1. The 5-second rule, popularized by Mel Robbins in her book of the same name. Here's how it works. Simply count down from 5 to 0, and when you reach 0, take action to start working. It's surprisingly effective in overcoming procrastination. For instance, if I need to record a voiceover but feel reluctant, I'll count down in my head. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, 0. Then I'll gather my equipment and begin. While the exact science behind this method isn't clear, it's proven effective through practice. We often associate countdowns with anticipation from childhood or the launch of a rocket. The countdown creates a sense of urgency and signals the start of action. Counting down from 5 is more impactful than counting up, as it culminates in the decisive moment of 0. The duration of the countdown is flexible. Use whatever number feels right for you. Method #2. Easy and simple. A strategy we've devised. The concept is straightforward. Identify the 3 most basic steps required to begin a task and commit to completing only those steps. After the 3rd step, you can decide whether to continue or stop. This approach avoids overwhelming yourself and often leads to continued progress beyond the initial steps. By breaking down tasks into manageable parts and setting clear boundaries, you can overcome the initial resistance to starting. These methods might seem simple, but their effectiveness lies in their ability to bypass mental barriers and initiate action. Consider a scenario where I need to set up a Google Ads campaign but lack motivation. Breaking it down into 3 simple steps. Step 1, open my computer. Step 2, log into my Google Ads account. Step 3, click the Create New Campaign button, makes it more manageable. I commit to only completing these steps with the freedom to stop afterward. However, once I've clicked the Create New Campaign button, I'm often motivated to continue because I'm already engaged in the process. This approach is effective for several reasons. Firstly, the initial 3 steps are so simple that they don't seem intimidating, making it easy to start. Secondly, once you've started, taking additional steps feels more achievable. Method #3. The artificially natural deadline is a strategy we've developed that has proven successful for us. If you find it doesn't work for you, the first 2 methods are viable alternatives. The artificially natural deadline involves scheduling a meeting with someone whose opinion we value to discuss or present our progress on a task. This meeting serves as a deadline, motivating us to complete the task. Imagine needing to prepare a presentation. It's a task that typically requires more than a couple of days, especially if research is involved. However, knowing our tendency to procrastinate, we can set up a meeting with someone important a week from now to present the finished presentation and gather feedback. This self-imposed deadline forces us to start working because we have a fixed due date. The key is to choose someone whose opinion we value greatly and whom we wouldn't want to disappoint by rescheduling or showing up unprepared. For example, when we were launching videos on our channel, we'd tell friends and acquaintances to expect a new video on a specific date and time, even though we hadn't started making it yet. This created a sense of urgency and a commitment to meeting the deadline. You might be concerned about setting deadlines you can't meet. However, in such situations, you'll often find a way to make it happen. Think back to your school or college days when you might have started studying just a few days before an exam, yet still managed to learn the material and achieve the desired grade. I've encountered many situations like that myself. Have you ever wondered why it happens? When we're in a high-pressure situation, our brains kick into high gear to find the most efficient path to our goal. It's amazing how capable our brains are in these moments. They prioritize the important tasks, and distractions like social media or TV shows fade into the background. Our ability to absorb and remember information also improves. That's why creating artificial deadlines can be so effective. I'd also like to remind you to subscribe to our channel, like the video, and share it with your friends and family. These are the key methods we use to motivate ourselves and beat procrastination. Some are well-known techniques, while others are strategies we've developed through trial and error. They have been incredibly helpful in overcoming the initial hurdle of starting a task when motivation is low. The 5-second rule, breaking tasks into easy steps, and creating artificial deadlines are all psychological tricks that help us shift into action. Once you start, the Zeigarnik Effect kicks in, making it easier to stay focused and complete the task. It's important to experiment with different techniques and find what works best for you. We all have unique psychological patterns and motivations. The key is to find the right triggers to overcome procrastination and get into a productive mindset. Don't let perfectionism or overthinking hold you back. Just dive in, get started, and trust that your mind will find its flow. The first step is always the hardest, but it gets easier from there. Use whatever mental strategies or commitments you need to stop procrastinating and start making progress. You've got this.